if you grew up in the 80s or you listen to 80s music or you know anything about 80s pop, then you cannot really call yourself an 80s music listener unless you know a man by the certain name of Prince. Now, many people might know him from the Purple Rain album, but truthfully, he has a crazy long music career. He has hits throughout pretty much almost every album he's ever released. And even before Purple Rain, he was well known with his 1999 music album, but Purple Rain really just pushed him into that stardom. And following Purple Rain, literally not even that long after the Purple Rain tour ended, Prince would come back around with another album. And many people around this time were expecting a Purple Rain too. But if you really listen to Prince and you understand that Prince does things different each album, then you would understand that the follow-up to Purple Rain was not going to be a Purple Rain 2. It was going to most likely sound completely different. And that's where we get into today's discussion about a certain little album called Prince's Around the World in a Day. Now, the very cool thing about this album is if you look at the cover art, it is very vibrant artwork. It's clearly a painting in a nutshell. Even the back of it's very vibrant. And what I like about the back of it too is it has all the track lists, but the cool thing about it, including the track list, is every track list is in a different font. But here's what's really cool about the front cover. If you've ever seen the Raspberry Beret music video, in the music video, Prince is pretty much wearing a blue suit with clouds on the blue suit. And if you look at the front album cover, guess who that is? That's Prince from the Raspberry Beret music video. Now you're probably like, wait a second, no way. In the Raspberry Beret music video, he didn't have blonde hair like he does here, right? Well, there is a reason for that. Now, what most people don't know is right before the release of this album, Prince did try to make an attempt to bleach his hair blonde. And apparently it really didn't work in real life, as the story goes. And from what I remember from the story, I believe all of his hair fell out. So when you see Prince of blonde hair right here on the album, it's because at one point right before the release of this album, he actually tried to dye his hair blonde, and it didn't really work out and all his hair fell out. So after that point, he started wearing a wig until it all grew back. Another pretty cool theory about the cover art here is that every character on the cover art here represents a song from the album, with of course this being Raspberry Beret, of course the little person up here being from Around the World in a Day, person right here technically being the Tambourine Song, and so on and so forth. And that's just a little theory that listeners have put together. I'm unsure if it's even true. And to better even support this little theory is if you look on the back of here, there's a ladder, right? And even on the front, there's a ladder. Ironically, there is a song on the album called The Ladder. And then if you open it up and you look at the insert right here, there's a little black baby boy waving an American flag. Ironically, there is a song on the album called America. Like I was saying, if you're an avid Prince listener, you understand that no two Prince albums are going to be the same. Might there be similar Prince tracks from album to album? Yes. But you understand Prince likes to experiment and do things different each album. And when this album came out, a lot of people were saying, Prince is going psychedelic, bro. But if you listen to this album, there is so much experimentation. It's not even funny. But I also feel like the experimentation in this album also kind of negatively impacts this album. Because there's nothing wrong with experimenting, but there is an issue with over-experimenting, which kind of gives you a bad product. And I'm not saying this product is bad. I'm just saying that there's points in this album where Prince over-experiments. So like on the first opening track, Around the World in a Day, the opening track is a generally okay track, just okay. But like the first 20-30 seconds, the way it opens up, classic Prince fashion, super experimental, but it over-experiments, right? Paisley Park, the second one, I feel like there's parts of it where it feels like it's over-experimenting, but Paisley Park it's a pretty good song. It's just okay. It's not the best of Prince's discography, but with the over-experimentation you find in this album, you also find some hidden gems, and you also find moments of really good experimentation. So for example, you get to track 3, Condition of the Heart. It's quite literally an entire piano piece. And you remember that segment in the Purple Rain movie where, Prince's father is playing that piece on the piano. Imagine if they took that and made it into an entire track. What most people don't know is that part in the movie is actually a piano rendition of Computer Blue from Purple Rain, and it's a very beautiful piano piece. It's one of the more standout experimenting moments in this album. And then right after that, boom, what do you get? Raspberry Beret, right? You know, Raspberry Beret kind of sounds like a sequel to Take Me With You from, you know, the Purple Rain album. And Raspberry Beret is probably like the biggest hit from this album, and it's a really great song. And then you get tracks like America, where there's experimentation in there, but you're iffy on it. Like you get a catchy hook with America, and it's a really catchy hook, and even the lyrics are pretty deep, you know. The lyrics are talking about this person that's literally struggling in our country, but the person's pretty happy that, you know, they're not a part of the Soviet Union. Yeah, they're struggling in our country, but they're not a part of the Soviet Union. On one hand, it's kind of like a patriotic song, but on the other hand, it highlights a very serious issue of very serious issues that lower class individuals face in our country. And so it's just kind of like, wow. Then, so America, it's very experimental at times. If you just focus on those lyrics, you're like, wow. You know, it's just one of those songs where there's a hidden message disguised behind the sound. And I feel like that hidden message beautifully encapsulates, you know, some of Prince's own lyricism and writing skills. And then you get more experimentation with songs like The Ladder, where it's a very gospel, very soul-like song. And what boggles my mind, and this is the one thing that just irks me, you know, The Ladder is such a great song. It is such a great song. And what I don't get, and I just don't understand, is how The Ladder is not the final song on this album. Because The Ladder, you know, it kind of feels like a sequel to the Purple Rain song. And it's such a great song. And, you know, Purple Rain had gospel elements. The Ladder also has gospel elements in it as well. And when you realize it's not the album closer, it's kind of like a, wait a second. What? You know, you just kind of feel like, hold on. Like, this would have made the album almost perfect if it was a closer. And then the final song on this album, Temptation. Another example of what I mean, like, experimentation can be good and it can also be bad. And in this case, Temptation is a very mixed bag in my opinion. The experimentation in the beginning of the song of Temptation, it kind of put me off there a bit. I'm sitting here thinking, Prince, what are we doing, man? What are we doing? Like, I get it, you are Prince, this is what you do. But if you don't tune out within the first 2 minutes of the song and you continue listening, the experimentation actually, it gets very good. And towards the end there, you know, you hear this very deep voice. I'm guessing what we can assume is supposed to be like a demonic entity or something like that, speaking to Prince. And you hear Prince screaming in agony. And then Prince, you know, whispers a farewell message to the listeners. And so that experimentation at the very end of Temptation, it's just like, my God. Because when you first listen to the beginning of Temptation, you're just sitting here, you're like, okay, I'm going to tune out of this. But then as you continue listening to Temptation, it only gets better. It's one of those songs where you have to stick through and listen to it till the end. And so I think an overall rating I am going to give this album as a huge Prince fan is, and this is not a bad rating, I am going to have to explain, a high 3.5 out of 5 stars, which 3.5 out of 5 to me, that's a good rating. If Prince would have cut out certain songs from this album and changed up parts of this album, I feel like it would have almost been a perfect 5, or it would have been another perfect album. What are your opinions on this album? Let me know. Comment below. Until next time, peace out.